We're learning Korban Pesach, Rae Gann Family, Hilchos Amud Memvov. Shlit Pesach, the shlit of the Korban Pesach was the kos domoy, and the spraying of the blood of michui krovov, emptying the intestines, hekter halol, and bringing up the fats on the mizbeach. Doichenes Shabbos, push away Shabbos. We'll go down to the Peirush. You can do it even on Shabbos. We find this in Psochim Samach Hey Beis 65b. Shiur Shalas isn't going to Shabbos because all of these things can't be done before Shabbos. Why not? Why can't you slaughter before Shabbos? The Torah specified a date. Shenema b'moi adoi. Wherever it says moi adoi, it means according to the Rambam, according to the Shas, that's when it has to be done. So therefore, other work which has to do on Shabbos, it says b'yom tzavoisoi. There are other avodas that has to do on Shabbos, as it says on the day you were commanded, and the day by not by night. Now, when Erev Pesach is on Shabbos, you can even bring the chalovim till the middle of the night. You don't wait till Motzei Shabbos because of the mitzvah b'shata, even though it can be done after Shabbos. And this is the rule that every korban has a specific time, whether it's a korban tzibur, whether it's a korban yochin, is doicha Shabbos and Tumah. Every korban that has no time is not doicha not Shabbos and not Tumah, because if you won't bring it today, you'll bring it tomorrow. Another reason why korban Pesach is doicha Shabbos, Rambam writes, because we learn Gzeira Shava mikom Tomid. You learn a Gzeira Shava, we find the same word in two places, because it says Shenema, as it says in both Korban Tomid and in Korban Pesach, B'moi Adoi. And just like Tomid is doicha Shabbos, because it has to be brought daily, and Shabbos is one of the days, also Pesach pushes off Shabbos. Why didn't the Rambam mention this Gzeira Shava? So Abdul Pardo explains he didn't want to mention Gzeira Shava because sometimes you can find a answer or a question that can't be answered, and therefore he just brings the statement that Me'adoi, which is brought in the Chazal, in the Gemara, Me'adoi means it must be done on that day. As far as spraying the blood, there's no issur to spray the blood on Shabbos, but it's mentioned in the Mishnah. Why? To tell you, since you're slaughtering, they mentioned it as well. Neitzion wants to state when he writes that when you spray the blood, there's an issur to move it midrabanan. And therefore, there's emphasis placed that, and in Beis Hamikdash we don't look at that. Issur, you can do so on Shabbos. Aval kavosei, the carrying the sheep to the Beis Hamikdash, and bringing it from beyond the border, the amount area that you're allowed to go, 2,000 amas beyond the city. Or cutting off a wart with an instrument, so that the animal will not have a blemish. Do not push away Shabbos, because he could have done that yesterday before Shabbos. Now, the question comes up. Carrying the animal, bringing it from beyond the area where you're allowed to go on Shabbos, that's deraisa. They're not doicha Shabbos, they don't push off Shabbos, because you could do it before Shabbos. Or, is it, even if it's a drabonon, still they're not doicha Shabbos, because you could have done it yesterday. The Marikurkes is of the opinion that Rambam, it says Issa Torah, that there's a forbiddenness in Torah in carrying it, because he says in Hilchos Shabbos, somebody who takes out a wild animal or an oiv, even he's carrying it from Rishus HaYochel to Rishus HaRabim, even though they're alive. We have a rule that a live thing is carrying itself to a certain extent. That's why something that's limp and dead is heavier. You're chayiv, but odom chai. But a person, if you carry a person out, it's not considered a carrying. We'll go to the next omud. Because when you take out an animal from Rishus L'Shus Shabbos, you're chayiv. For the rule of chayiv atzma is only when you carry a person that can go in himself, not an animal. Thus, carrying the Korban Pesach 4 amos or Rishus HaRabim is in Issa Torah, because Yerushalayim, when we'll see, when it didn't have the walls, had a din of Rishus HaRabim, and therefore you couldn't carry it. Also, bringing it beyond the Tchum, the question of whether Tchum what is the distance of the Raisa or not? The Marie Korkis says there's an Issa Torah on Tchum, because it says in Shmois 16:29, no one is allowed to go beyond out of his place on Yom HaShvi. That place is designated within 2,000 Amos. And the Rambam paskins that way in all Shabbos. Therefore, all the Yisurim in the Asurim with Pesach, the Issa Torah. But if it would be the Rabbanans, then we could do so in the Beis HaMikdash, because we have a rule that the Rabbanan did not apply their limitations to the Beis HaMikdash. Rashi says even if it's only the Rabbanan, on Shabbos not permitted, since you could have done it yesterday. So there the Chacham implemented their rules, even in the Beis HaMikdash, if you could have done it yesterday. Now, we should point out that according to Marie Korkis, who was of the opinion that Issa Torah is not Torah Shabbos, and Issa Rabbanan means that only Issa Torah, Issa Rabbanan are pushed off because of Korban Pesach, whereas Issa Shabbos are not. Why is the cutting of the wart considered an Issa of Shabbos? At first glance, it would seem you only have the Rabbanon, as the Gemara says in Psachim 68b on the Mishnah. Why is it forbidden to cut off a wart on Shabbos? They said in the Erevin you can cut off a wart in the Beis HaMikdash if you do it by hand, but you can't do it outside the Beis HaMikdash. So it would seem that the Chacham didn't permit you to rectify something outside the Beis HaMikdash, but in the Beis HaMikdash they didn't apply their rule. And the Gemara answers two answers. In the Erevin, they permitted it by a old wart which is falling apart, and the Mishnah forbids only a new fresh wart which is soft. 2, the Erevin is talking about doing it by hand, that's why you can do it. Where the Mishnah is talking about doing it with a kli, therefore you can't do it. The Rambam paskins, according to the second teretz, that you can cut off a fresh wart with a vessel, with an instrument, and he is of the opinion, as the Marie Korkis says, that cutting off a yabeles with a vessel would be an Isser Minat Torah, and therefore it's not Torah Shabbos. It wouldn't help you that you have a Korban Pesach, you would not push off Shabbos. Many question the Rambam. Here he forbids cutting off a wart with a vessel because it's a Torah. And all Shabbos, Perek Tes Halacha Ches, he permits cutting off a wart that's soft in the Beis HaMikdash because it's only the Rabbanon. There's no Shvus B'Mikdash. Look at the Magen Mishnah there and you'll see the question. So the Marie Korkis explains why the Rambam forbids cutting off this wart. Even though it's a Shvus is permitted in the Mikdash, not every Shvus was permitted. There are those things that the Chazal so there are two standards, and they made them as strong as by Torah, like cutting off a wart with a vessel which is deraisa, and as Taisus writes in Erevin, the Shvus Godelu, that cutting off the wart, even soft, is like a deraisa because it's of a great magnitude. And other Rishonim mention this with regard to other aspects of Shabbos. Therefore, Ram could be of the opinion that therefore you can't cut off the wart with a vessel because it's called a Shvus Godel, not because it's deraisa, and even though it's Rabbanan, it was not permitted in the Beis HaMikdash. Lechem Mishnah disagrees with Marie Korkis, and the opinions like Rashi. Every Isra Rabbanan you can do from Erev Shabbos doesn't push off in the Mikdash, and therefore bringing it from beyond the Tchum and carrying it, even though only the Rabbanon, it's also because you could have done it from yesterday. Now we will go to the continuation of the words of the Rambam, and the if he can cut off the wart with his hand, with his hands he should cut. If it was dry, he can cut it off even with a vessel. Because there is no shvus, the Rambam says, in the Mikdash at all. So Lechem Mishnah says, if that's the case, why did he permit cutting off a dry wart with a vessel? and he wasn't afraid of shvus. The opinion of a vessel is an issa shvus, and the Migdash, they permitted it because they needed it. It could be that you could cut off the aveshes from Erev Shabbos, and according to Rashi, that's not a question because there's no shvus, because the avelas, when it's dry, will fall apart. The Mishnah answers that to cut off the wart with the hand is mutter because it's not the way you do it. It's called shinui. It's differentiating to show that something is forbidden, but you're doing it differently. It's not normal. It's not considered having done it in your ordinary fashion, and therefore the forbiddenness is lighter, and therefore you can do it in the Beis Hamikdash, even though you could have done it Erev Shabbos. Also, a dry wart to cut off with a kli is a shinui. It's considered a lighter isur. That's forbidden in the Mishnah, in the Mikdash. Now, let us add that according to the Mishnah, the Rambam is very explicit in his language. There's no shvus b'mikdash at all. He doesn't write like in Halacha to Zion that is a shvus b'mikdash hetehu, that permitting shvus b'mikdash is something that they allowed. Because here he's talking about an issa shvus. The Lechem Mishnah called it a lighter type of shvus. And therefore he says this lighter one there is none in the Beis Hamikdash, even if you could have done it from Erev Shabbos. But something that's permitted totally is talking about in the Beis Hamikdash is one that could not have been done before Shabbos. The Rambam continues, roasting the korban, and washing out the innards does not push off Shabbos, because you can do it after Shabbos. And the main mitzvah of bringing the korban Pesach on the 14th is the shchita and the offering of the mizbeach. At night, the main ingredient is the eating.